everybody, it's Eugene Liscio here and welcome to Click 3D. This is the program where we talk about photogrammetry and how you can use a digital camera and some software to create some really compelling 3D models. Today we're going to be trying something a little different. It's a feature that I don't really use all that often, but it's called Shape from Silhouette, and it's a type of carving depending on the shape of the object, if you want to think about it that way. And it's useful for things which are transparent, which may give you problems when you're doing a regular reconstruction. So that's what we're going to try today. And I am going to walk through my setup here, and of course I've got my handy dandy camera. This is a Nikon D7100. I have a 40mm macro lens, and of course I've got a tripod. I'm going to be using a tripod because I've got all this dark background here and it's going to cause some extended exposure times. I'll talk about the camera settings in a minute. I have just a black background, so I actually tried a white background before. I was trying to put some paper and stuff like that here. However, it seems that the white is causing some problems with the bottle and the background, so there isn't a lot of contrast. And eventually I'll need to be using masking, okay? So the purpose or the need for the turntable and the background to be a sort of a solid color is so that I can remove it from the bottle. And the silhouette that it makes when I mask the bottle and I use little increments by turning the turntable here is what's going to carve out the shape of this particular object. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, I'm just using a monitor here, and I had a black shirt, so I just threw it over. If you have black fabric or white fabric, it's fantastic because you just kind of throw it, you can shape it however you want, and you're good to go. I also have this turntable here. Now, this is one that I had shown before, and in some of my other videos, I've posted this. I've spray painted one side white, and the other side is just the way it came, black. I could even put a more matte black finish on this because it has a little bit of a shine. You don't want these things to shine, so make sure you just keep them a flat primer color or something like that. And so I'm going to keep this on the black side here. And the other thing is, I found that when I'm going to be photographing this, there isn't a lot here that's going to be helpful to me in terms of the reconstruction, because all of this is background and this is going to be moving. The turntable here has a repeating pattern, so when you have repeating patterns, they are not helpful for photogrammetry. Okay, so what I did was I just took this, this is an iPhone box, and I'm just going to put that in the middle here and put this on top. So these little white, labeling and text and things like that, that's actually going to be helpful. So things like newspaper or other things, I was even thinking about, if I turn back here, just like a mouse pad or something like that, that can be very helpful to you because it has a lot of texture and different colors on the base. So when you're taking the photos, the base will help you with reconstructing the camera's position. That can be useful if you need it. However, I wanted to keep a dark background. I didn't want to put white, so this thing seemed to work just perfectly. I got a flat black space in the middle, and you know, I'm just going to put the bottle there and then rotate it around. So that's pretty much the setup that I have here. The camera I already talked about, but the settings on the camera. So the three things that I always talk about is ISO number. That's going to be very low. I have that set to ISO 100, and I have my f-stop number is 20. I could go a little bit higher or a little bit lower. Depth of field isn't going to be too much of an issue on this particular object, but if I was really close, then it would be. Okay, so the closer you get to an object, and if you have a low f-stop number, depth of field is going to be a problem. So in that case, the front part of the bottle would have been in focus, but you know, as you sort of start to turn away to the sides here or move away, then they would get out of focus. I need to make sure that everything is in focus as much as possible, and that's why I'm using a high f-stop number. And then on the shutter speed, because everything is dark here, even though I got some lighting, it's going to be problematic. So I can't hold it by hand. I need an extended shutter time. So I'll have a look through here in a second and see what I've got in terms of the shutter speed. But I'm using a remote as well. That's going to be really helpful. Whenever I'm doing anything with extended shutter time, you don't want to be moving this thing around or wobbling it or whatever, even though I have a really sturdy tripod. I even try to stay still so I don't move around on the floor too much or cause any vibrations. Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna get on this thing and just look through and then kind of set it up. And then eventually I'll take some photos. So if I just look through here, it looks like everything appears pretty much in focus. I've moved it out of the way from where it was before. So I'm just gonna do a test where I move this around and the bottle is pretty much centered and I get part of the box and that sort of thing. So anyway, the position right now appears to be pretty good. Sometimes when you put objects on a turntable, if they're not centered properly, when you start moving them around, they sort of go out of frame a little bit. So I'm trying to capture the entire bottle and leaving just a tiny bit of space so that when I mask it, it should mask out pretty well. And I can really get the edges. Okay, the edges look pretty good, so I want to make sure that I get a nice sharp mask there. Okay, so if I have just a quick look here and I look at my settings, I am at f20. My ISO is, if I go check it here, down here, okay, it's showing me it's like 100, and my shutter speed right now is about 3 seconds. So I need to turn my remote on, so I'm going to go in here, go down to the remote menu. All right, a little bit more. There we go, remote control, and I'm just going to turn that on. All right, and I've already set up a new file and file name and all that stuff. So let me take a shot here and just see what I get. And this is going to take me 3 seconds and then it pops up. So that doesn't look too bad. I'm not sure if you can see it from this camera at all, but if I bring it back up, I'm going to zoom in a bit. That doesn't look too bad. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad at all. Okay, so I'm going to live with that. So now in terms of taking photographs, if you're going to be doing shape carving, some of the experimentation that I've done, I found that what you need to do is take very small increments on the turntable. So that means a lot of photos. Now, if I just take big jumps like this, then based on where the camera positions are, the interpolation from one part to the next part becomes somewhat flat. That's something that I found in some software. So what I'm going to do is just take some bigger jumps, or excuse me, take some smaller increments, not bigger jumps, don't do that. And we'll just start taking photographs, and once we're done the photographs, we're going to move over to the computer and process these files, and let's see what we get. Hopefully we'll get something decent. Okay, so I've gone around once and even had a few photos that overlap with the beginning photos. So we're going to stop here, head over to the computer, process these things, and I want to show you what it looks like. Okay folks, so I am back at my desk and I am going to start processing these images. But we're going to try a couple of things because experimentation is where you start learning things and understanding where sometimes, you know, images or the reconstruction breaks down. So if I bring these images in, well, let me just flip through a couple of them for you. So this is what they look like. So you see that they look pretty good, fairly well exposed in the bottle, and I've taken small little steps to go all the way around. It ended up being about 39 photos in total, which is not too bad. I thought it might be a little bit more. But what I'm going to do is just do a regular reconstruction. I'm just going to go through here, and it's got the images, and I just want to see how well it's going to orient. So I've got close range, and my preset is just the default, and I'm going to go ahead and hit run. Now, turntables are really tricky, and sometimes when I teach a course, a lot of people think that, hey, that's the way to go, you know, right off the bat. But it's actually sort of an additional element of complexity, and that's because you're moving something, so the object and the turntable are moving around, but you're leaving the background stationary. And so if there's a number of features in the background which it keeps recognizing or it tries to hold on to, then it doesn't actually reconstruct the bottle, it's going to be reconstructing the background, and that can be extremely confusing. So I'm going to let this go here and just do the initial reconstruction, which looks like it's coming through pretty quick. And we're going to see what it did. And sometimes it's not what you expect. So here, what it's telling me is that some photos reconstructed. There's a whole bunch here. So most of them reconstructed and a few of them got kicked out. And that's okay. That's okay. So, but let's see what we got here. So let's finish this and let's have a look. All right. So we know we were on a turntable. And you can see here, most of the photos are sitting right on top of each other. And so what that means is that when looking at one image to the next image, to the next image, to the next image, it just thinks that, the bottle is more or less in the same place, and it might be finding some points that are back here, but you can see the reconstruction completely failed. Really what I should have gotten here was a nice ring, okay, a nice circle showing all the different camera positions. And so what this is telling me is that the background is not going to help me right now. I need to use some masking, or I need to go back and change the background so that maybe the background is out of focus or blurred, and just the object, just the bottle, would be in focus. So I'm going to start over, and I'm going to walk you through the steps that you normally would need to do for something like this. So I'm going to take all these images again. I'm going to drag them in, and this time right off the bat I'm going to go to mask images. Okay, so I'm going to want to mask these images. I'm going to go to next, next again, and I'm going to launch masquerade. Now I already did a masking episode, so if you want to go back and check that, go ahead. So I'm only going to do a few of these, and then what I'm going to do is just go through them myself, and then what I'll do is I'll just go through it myself, and yeah, just fix it all up. Okay, so this first one, if I want to mask, I've got this red and blue tool down here. The red brush is what I want to keep, so I'm just going to brush in roughly what I want, and then the blue is what I don't want. So if I hold down the shift key without selecting it, then I've got the blue like that. Now originally, I should say this, I wanted to keep this box to help with the reconstruction, but it didn't work. Okay, so there wasn't enough texture, or this wasn't large enough or something like that, that it really helped. So no big deal. But let's check this mask. Okay, so I've got this little artifact over here, a few little things here. So to fix that, what I can do is I can just tell it I don't want it by holding down the shift key, and I'm going to make that blue, and you'll see it starts biting into the bottle, which I don't want. I want a nice crisp outline. So another method you can use when you get into a situation like this is the polygon tool, and I'm just going to make a polygon around here, something like this, and this makes it nice and crisp, and I'm going to tell it remove it, and now I've got something better. So not too bad. Here I'll just use the same method, just use the polygon like that, and I'm going to say subtract. Oh, I made a mistake. I actually wanted to keep that, so let me do that again. And I want to add this one. This is, oh, I just messed up here. Add to the mask. There we go. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Now I'll go here and I'm going to do the same thing. Polygon tool, and I'm going to click on the first one. Now this disappears, but if I go back, you'll see that it's actually there. It's because I'm in the black and white mode here, and I'm going to add this in, and it makes a nice mask. Okay, that looks pretty good, and I'm just going to save and move on to the next. And I'll do this one more time so everybody sees it. So I'm going to make I'm going to use the brush tool and go like this. And then I'll go and use the blue tool, blue brush, and say this is what I don't want. It'll go through and do its thing, and let me check the mask. And again, you see I've got some problems over here and over here. So I'm going to try it. I usually just try it with the brush tool just to see if it'll take. That's not too bad. I got this little piece over here. Okay, and when I start getting these things, I'm just going to go back to the polygon tool, and I'll just clean it up like this, like that, and I'm going to say remove, and let me go clean up this side. Now I better have a look here and see what's going on. So actually that is, the bottle's bent there, and I can see where the masking is having some problems. So again, let me try just the, let me try the brush tool, see if I can keep that. And if it spills over, I'll have to see. Let me check this here. Okay, so there is a little bit of a problem here. I want to keep this part, and I just don't want it to spill. So it's spilled over. I'm going to undo that, and I'm just going to highlight what I want to keep with the polygon tool again. So like this, like that, and like that, and like this. Okay, and tell it that I want to keep that. Okay, great. That's okay. A little bit there. I'll brush that in. Hopefully it'll keep that. Okay, good. And let's go to the top right there. Yeah, there's clearly some problems there. So let me mark this one like that. And I will just, yeah, do that and I'll keep it. All right, so that looks okay. Yep, not too bad. This still doesn't look, that doesn't make me happy. So I'm going to use the polygon tool and I'm going to cut pretty close to the edge here, so make it much cleaner. And this is important. You want to have a nice clean mask. So unfortunately, sometimes it means that the automatic tools don't always do what you need, but they're helpful. They save a lot of time, but you can see even here, it's just not it's not jiving with what I want. So I'm going to add that. Okay, cool. So I can go through and do all these images. Again, you can go back to the masking episode that we did. But what I'm going to do is I'll save this one. But there's some tools down here, and I can tell it that I was on a turntable. Okay, and that I want you to automatically compute the mask and then go forward. And by doing this, it's super helpful because it does the majority of the work, and then all I have to do is come in and do the fine details. So I'm just going to tell it, yeah, go ahead and do its thing. And as you follow along here, you'll see these little flashes, and you can kind of see where the masking is getting set. And up on the right, as it completes the mask, it's going to write the mask to a file. And if I bring this in, you'll be able to see this. You'll see that as it's writing, it's a BIM file, and for each of the images it will have one of these files that it'll be looking at. Okay, so let me put that back over here. So I'm just going to press pause here, and we'll be back to this in a second. Okay, so it looks like it just finished here, but I'm going to go through now and check them. I know I did the first two, so I'm going to check the third one, and I know I'll be doing some cleanup here, hopefully not too much, but let's see what I can do here, if I can get some of this tidied up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these. I'm not going to waste your time one by one, and then when I'm done, I'll come back and I'll show you the completed result, and then we'll go ahead and process those images. So just stand by. All right, well, that took a bit longer than I thought. There was a lot of little details and even some more that I could probably adjust. Actually, that's not too bad. But I have all the masks now, and that's what's important. So here's the risk when I go forward with this. I'm hoping that I have enough features on the label here that I can reconstruct the camera positions. If not, I'm going to have to go back, and I can probably make another set of masks that include the base here. That's probably going to help me to reconstruct everything, because just having a label here or something like that is not the best. So I'm going to close this off, and I'm going to refresh this, and so it has all my masks here, and we're going to give this a go. One thing I can try if I don't have a lot of details is I could try to tell it to go and do a deep look for a number of key points, and that's probably what I'm going to try right off the bat, because if it fails with this, then it means I need to go back and try something else. So I'm going to go ahead I'm going to let this run for a little bit, and then I am going to come back and see what happens. All right, so here we are, the moment of truth. And if I scroll through this with all the masks, it looks like all the images have reconstructed. But I want to look at this now and have a look at what it's giving me. So I can see that I now have a proper circle. This looks like where I have some of the overlap, but it, let me just see here. It doesn't look like, well, you can see I get a bit of noise on the bottle and that sort of thing. But the camera positions at the very least look like they've been reconstructed. So you can see the bottom of the bottle had some issues, right? So that's where it doesn't reconstruct. So this is where we're going to be trying the silhouette portion. So I could go in and then try a dense point cloud. In fact, I think I'll do that first just to show you what happens, and then I'll go back and then try the shape from silhouette, and we'll see which one is better. Maybe you never know. Sometimes you never know what you get, right? So I'm going to go back. I'm going to do close range default. Next, I'm going to run. Let's let this cook, and then I'll come back, and then let's see what just the dense reconstruction alone was able to do. All right, it's done. Let's have a look. And okay, so you'll see I've got something that doesn't look too bad, actually. I'm surprised that it looks as good as it does. And yeah, the bottom, not so much. Now, one thing as this was working away here that I realized was I should look at the bounding box, because if the bounding box isn't set correctly, then I've got a problem. And what the bounding box does is define your different areas. Let me shut this off so I can turn it. I gotta shut this down here. So you can see I have a flat section over here. Well, that flat section was caused because of the bounding box. One thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to straighten this bottle out, because otherwise it gets a little difficult to manipulate. So I'm just going to say that's the up vector. Shoot that down, and then okay, that's a little bit easier to manipulate. So I got to adjust this bounding box, because you see it caused a little flat spot. So but overall I'm really surprised that I was able to get something on this, because normally this would be a difficult object. So I'm going to go a bit out this way. I'm going to go a little bit more on the bottom. That's probably okay. And the top is okay. Looks like the bounding box now. Just so you know, the bounding box here is the area that it's going to work on. Anything outside of this, it's not going to do anything with. So, okay, not too bad. But let's go back, and now let's try the shape from silhouette, because that's really what I want to try. That's all set up, and what I'm going to do is you got to go back to the dense point cloud. I'm going to use all the cameras, but what I'm going to do is on the presets, I'm going to go to advanced, and you'll see here that there's a setting here. It says shape from silhouette. So I'm just going to go on and turn that on, okay? And looseness, you see down at the bottom here, when I hover over the tool, it says the looseness value for the shape from silhouette increase when the masks are not accurate. Now, my masks were pretty good, but I found that I need to bump this up a little bit anyway. So I'm going to start at 25%, so it's not so, well, maybe 20%, so it's not so restrictive. And this is what I'm going to try. I'm just going to go from here, and I'm going to go run. So let's give that a go. Now it's using a different approach. So it's going to be looking at the silhouette, the shape from the mask, and then trying to build and recover a shape from that. Okay, let's finish there. So this was what I got from the shape from silhouette. So that's pretty interesting. You'll see it's a much, much cleaner shape for the bottle. So I'm actually really impressed with this now. I didn't think I was going to get this good of a result, really. I got points on the top. Now, you can see here on the edges, and just something that I noticed, I think these are caused by all the little different steps. And so taking more steps seems to help quite a bit. So I was surprised how fast that was too. I thought it was going to take a little bit longer. But I'm going to go ahead and just process this into a mesh, and then I want to do the texture and see if that works out too, or if we have any issue. So to do that, I'm just going to go mesh extraction, and I'm just going to use the default, and let's run this, and let's wait and see what happens here. And hopefully we'll get an impressive result. I'm really enthused by what I just saw. Okay, so this is the mesh, and the textures don't look so great, but I have to recalculate those. But overall, I think that I might even be able to improve this if I took more photos. I'm pretty sure that that would really help a lot with the textures. But even just this, I'm pretty happy with what it's doing here. I'm really surprised, actually. I thought it was going to be much worse, but that's not too bad at all. Well, okay, folks, I'm going to stop just at the mesh. Basically, after this, you would want to go back and do a texture. But I think this came out a little better than I thought, really. You can see that the shape is recovered better than just the dense cloud that we had created. But it still needs a little bit of work. You can see there's still some artifacts and little things like that. However, hopefully this gave you an idea of the other types of things that you can do inside of photogrammetry software like 3ds Zephyr. I appreciate your watching, and hey, look for another video coming up soon. Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.